Hello and welcome back to another new edition of Windows on Current Affairs. And today we take a comprehensive look over one of the most successful initiatives by the Egyptian administration according to the directives of President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, Haya Karima, or Decent Life. We're going to be taking a look over its objectives and its goals and how far has it reached in governorates and everything about this national initiative. We're very delighted to be having with us Dr. Moataz Abu Zaid. He's a professor of international law. Good evening, Dr. Abu Zaid. Let's first give a full assessment of this initiative.
Yes, of course, initiative of Decent Life or Haya Karima. I think it must be defined as life with dignity. It will be a perfect translation for this initiative, and of course, this is the main goal of this initiative that was declared by Mr. President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi. Of course, according to the new constitutional segments and articles were issued in 2014 according to the establishment of our new republic, improving the system of human rights here in Egypt. It was clear that we added new freedoms and new rights to be saved and to be protected by law, and of course we reshape the old ones and the old thoughts about these rights and the freedoms, and of course there must be a system to improve and support these rights and the freedoms, and according to these broad lines, the constitutional articles and the directions of the new republic, and of course the new ideas added in this constitution. So the president directed for these initiatives, and of course I think up till now it's making its progress that's very noticed by all.
Of course, we're talking about a national project that is targeting the rural areas and the villages all over Egypt, the different governorates, of course, the places that are very hard to reach. Yes. And families that are in dire need for help when it comes to sanitation, when it comes to improving their living standards, when it comes to facilities, when it comes to services and everything. And this particular initiative have succeeded to a great extent in setting its feet and leaving its footprints. Yes. Over many villages. Talk to us about it.
Of course, as you said, it left great footprints. It was noticed by all, as I said, and we can conclude that for two reasons. The first one, the system or the steps that initiative of Haya Karima or Decent Life was established on according to three stages. They are looking for countries or villages or rural regions which is the poorer or the more needy for any services or public interests. This is the first category, which has a percentage of poverty more than 70% among its individuals. And the second step or the second stage will be the treatment of another villages or another rural regions that the percentage of poverty between 50% and 70%. And the third step or the third stage will be for villages that can deal with a percentage of poverty less than 50%. According to this situation or according to this division, it must be scheduled for every stage, the suitable financial funds, the suitable time to be achieved, and of course the suitable efforts that can participate in this stage. Actually, they are beginning now to continue their contribution for the first stage, beginning with about 337 villages among maybe nearly 1,000 village for the whole initiative. And of course, the first stage is going ahead during rebuilding of many services can be presented in these villages, like healthcare, like education, and of course infrastructure and network of roads.
Even a representative by the UNDP have stated that this is one of the most successful initiatives, social initiatives amongst all the countries in the Middle East,
Yes.
Especially providing services for the citizens. And lately there were two convoys, one from the Ministry of Health that toured medical convoy, of course free medical convoy, that toured Egypt's governorates and have given 48 different facilities,
Yes.
and also the educational convoy that have effected some services also.
Yes.
And have toured the governorates of Egypt.
Yes. Yes, of course, the new idea or the new concept that initiative of Haya Karima or Decent Life presented is to give new visions of human rights. For a long time we thought that human rights or decent life can be achieved by participating in some political activities, participating in elections or something like this, going through protests or revolutions. And of course it was needed in a certain time for this country, but after that, after setting for new republic, setting for new constitution, setting for new rules to be to govern this country, of course we must take a look about another rights and the freedoms related to the people life. We will not all the time making revolution, and also we don't need all the time to make protests and to make elections and to practice our political rights. Of course we have another rights that must be protected and must be cared by the Egyptian government, and of course this is the main basis of this initiative, taking care for social rights, economic rights and cultural rights for these villages. Of course we cannot say that they need more rights and freedoms from these types, but of course they had a minimum rate of these rights, and of course this initiative can enlarge this percentage, and of course they can have a more successful system to practice these rights and to make these rights reaching more wider places and more people.
Right. Of course the system that is working, that is, orchestrating this initiative is very, very distinguished and very selective.
Yes.
Different civil societies and different entities and businessmen and different companies that are all collaborating to provide services and some plans and some particular steps to be able to effect change inside Egyptian villages.
Yes.
How is that working?
We can admit that the union of all these efforts must give a good result. Of course, from the beginning and from the new vision of our country, by setting that dealing with human rights, dealing with freedoms is not a mission of a certain sector in this country. Of course, it is not a competition between civil society and the governmental or official sector. Cooperation between these two sectors and opening of new fields to collaborate these efforts together, of course it will give a great push for this initiative. On the other hand, a new field or a new space can be opened for businessmen and special or private projects to participate in this initiative, of course. And it was very remarkable and significant when we saw the first advertisements of this initiative, participating for public figures, maybe stars of movies, maybe businessmen in Egypt. And of course this will give a new concept for people to be encouraged to participate in this initiative, and of course it will give good results according to this collaboration of all these sectors.
What type of services are supposed to be given? Of course we know that they need different services, but I mean, on what basis those parts are selected? I mean, the parts that are collaborating together.
Yes.
Like for example the civil societies. How does it work? How do they coordinate between each other?
There are many standards that the initiative of Haya Karima or Decent Life was based on. These basis can measure what villages can be entered in this initiative or not. And according to these standards, which they are, I think, the standards of life for individuals in this village, the individual income for persons in these villages, of course, the percentage of literacy and education in these villages, the infrastructure and supplies of water, drains or something like this, and the network of roads reaching these villages. According to these standards, we can determine or we can decide either this village can be entered to this initiative or not. And according to the needed activities to be supported for this village, we can choose what party can collaborate or participate in this initiative or in this stage or in this village. So according to the basis of the initiative, we can select our participant or our partner in this village or in this stage. Of course, the needs of these villages are not the same, and it will not be at the same time to be achieved. So we can select a certain partner according to a certain project or according to a certain stage in this initiative, according to these 5 standards we began with.
Right. What are the most important priorities when it comes to the map that is set on the table for those civil societies and for the companies and for the volunteers and everything? How do they choose their priorities? I mean, what type of services that are in dire need to start off with?
Of course, health and education was for a long time, both are for a long time neglected in many villages here in Egypt. And of course, many people suffered from the absence of these services in many villages, maybe in Upper Egypt and maybe in Delta. Of course, they suffered for a long time from not only the absence of this service, but the bad treatment of this service for many people in these villages. And of course, both of these two rights or these two services can occupy the first priority in this initiative, of course. After that, we can say that the infrastructure and the networks of roads in these villages can take the second priority according to it's one of the basics, as we said, based on this initiative, or this initiative was based upon. And on the other hand, one of the activities that the Egyptian country now is looking for to be improved, and of course it is noticeable now to what progress that Egypt had achieved in this network or these projects. And of course, after that, we can decide how to serve these villages in their economic rights and how to raise the individual income in these villages.
What are the other mechanisms in which that are set on the table also, on which through which those parts and entities that are coordinated together could work on in order to be able to provide the services? We talked about digitalization, but we need to elaborate on it. There must be other mechanisms that should operate all the parts together and try to coordinate between them and try to instruct and prioritize and everything.
Yes. As you say, digitalization is a very urgent need, not only for these villages to reach it, but of course for the achievement of this initiative according to efforts done by the government. Of course, according to what you said, the collaboration between the parties of this initiative, maybe civil society, maybe businessmen or the governmental sector, it must be clear for everyone that every part of this initiative had a certain feature that can serve this initiative in a successful way. Firstly, if we are talking about financial resources or funds, of course, businessmen can improve these projects, and it will be a benefit for them to make the social responsibility or their social responsibilities according to their investments and projects. Of course, according to the participation of civil society, the civil society is more spread more than the governmental sector and more nearer to the people. They can hear their sufferings and they can deal directly with them in a more way, a more freedom way than the governmental sector. Of course, the routine or the system of the governmental sector also is needed in such initiative to make schedules, to have decisions, to set priorities, as you said. So, of course, every party of this initiative had a certain rule, and of course, we cannot deny any rule of these rules. So, of course, according to what we said, according to the standards we are beginning with in this initiative, and according to the priorities we are settled in this initiative, so according to this, we can choose or we can arrange the rules of the participants in this initiative, when and how you can do your role.
Of course, we all know that the Ministry of Social Solidarity was put in charge of developing those poorer sectors in society, around 1,000 villages.
Yes.
What is the criteria that is applied to reach those families, according to the Ministry of Solidarity?
Ministry of Solidarity, according to its mission or according to its function, is the main link between the governmental sector and associations and assemblies of civil society. On the other hand, Ministry of Solidarity is the competent ministry to make statistics or to deal with poor people, needy people, or some people who need aids or helping from the country. So according to these two missions or two tasks responsible, that Ministry of Solidarity responsible for, it can give the right hand in this initiative according to organizing how to participate with civil society in this initiative, and of course to arrange priorities or arrange the selective or needed villages to be served by this initiative.
There is a very famous proverb or saying which states or which quotes, give a man a fish and you feed him for a day. Yes. Teach that man how to fish and you will feed him for a lifetime. And it says a lot. It's a very important saying, which mainly says that providing services, providing donations, donating services to the needy people and the low-income brackets is something that is good.
Yes.
But at the same time, it's not the sustainable way to be able to help society. Yes. The most sustainable developed way is that you provide them with a lifetime education, with a lifetime opportunity for a job, or the small and medium enterprises, the macro economic projects and these types of businesses, or you teach them how to fetch opportunities.
Yes.
Is that being taken as a step inside decent life?
Yes, of course. As you said, mentioning this Chinese old proverb, and of course it's very right proverb, that teaching someone how to fish is better than giving him a fish every day. And I think this is the old translation of the word sustainability that we are using nowadays. Of course, sustainability, not only a new concept to be achieved by these initiatives or something like this, but it is a responsibility or an obligation now upon the Egyptian country, according to its commitment for the sustainable goals of the United Nations and the visions of Egypt in 2030, and these plans and strategies put by the government of Egypt. This is the first point. So it's clear that Egypt is so attached to this sustainability to be achieved in our country. The second point, as we said, according to the standards was initiative of Haya Karima or Decent Life was based on, we mentioned raising the income of people in these villages after improving the infrastructure, after improving or supporting the services of health and education. So the rest of this service will be how to educate them or how to raise the awareness of people in these villages to invest these good opportunities to participate even in more projects or to have their enterprises, as you said, even small or micro enterprises according to the standard of living or to the resources available in these villages. It's one of the goals of this initiative. Of course, it will be the third step or the third priority in the services presented by this initiative, but of course it was scheduled to be the final result of this initiative, as it will be how to go fishing, as you said, in a sustainable way, not only to invest these services for a long time, but you will gain a profit, or you will gain an interest from these services after time.
Right. We're going to go to a short break and we'll come to continue Windows and Current Affair in a moment, so stay with us. Welcome back. We're still talking about decent life. Dr. Moataz Abu Zaid, a professor of international law. And Dr. Abu Zaid, we were just talking about the Minister of Local Development have given an excellent presentation before the African Union, members of the African Union, and explaining the objectives and the goals and the achievements of this national project and national initiative, one of the biggest in its time through years in the Middle East, and it was applauded by the members of the African Union and African countries, and Egypt was offering to give the same experience to some African countries, and it was well received, and he said the funds that or the donations that are allocated for this initiative is huge. I want you to talk to us in detail about what the minister have stated and the possibilities of taking the same experience or delivering the same experience to other African countries.
Of course, it was a new vision of the foreign policy of Egypt since 2019, when Egypt took the presidency of the African Union. Of course, it was a significant interval in this international organization, and there was a very remarkable change in all the African relation after a very long time of unstable relation with many African countries. And of course, one of these points of cooperation was the meeting held by the Egyptian country this month, according to an invitation from President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi to many participants from many African countries to express or to present the achievements or the progress of initiative of Haya Karima, or decent life. One of the main ministries related to this initiative is the Ministry of Local Development, and of course Minister of Local Development gave, as you said, an excellent presentation about this initiative, not only as a strategy or as a plan, but as an achievement that can be proceeded on in a real way, or in a realistic in the Egyptian country. Of course, it was very welcomed and encouraged to repeat and imitate this initiative in other African countries. And of course, it was welcomed and encouraged by the Egyptian people or the Egyptian government to give any help or any aid or any experience to improve this experience in another African countries. Of course, it will give more ways of cooperation and more good relations, and to strengthen these relations with African countries. And of course, it will give more opportunities to Egyptian youth or Egyptian experts to participate in the development of other African countries. And of course, it will be a great evidence and a great proof for the success of this initiative, and to be welcomed and repeated in many African countries. Of course, it will be a success for Egypt according to the progress they achieved in this initiative.
Right, but as we all know, that the backbone and one of the main pillars for this national initiative is the civil society in Egypt. And of course, the businessmen and Egyptian businessmen and civil organizations and all that. In order to help other low-income brackets, African low-income brackets, and other communities in Africa, they need to, from inside and from within themselves, to found African civil society, to found organizations and other societies, to giving public services, and I mean, that particular scene that was created in Egypt, it has to be created in Africa, and Egypt will step in and give a hand. How is that going to be possible? Is that scene available, or are these conditions available in the Black continent?
Of course, if
I mean in
African
other
countries,
countries.
yes, of course, according to African countries, if they are following or noticing or observe, make an observation for the Egyptian country agenda for the last 5 or 6 years, starting from 2017, I think, when we declared a certain year for women, and after that 2018 we declared a certain year for child. After that we declared a certain year for special needs or disabled peoples or something like this. And of course 2022 was declared as the year of civil society here in Egypt. Of course, according to a chain of procedures and plans and strategies was done or was declared by the Egyptian government according to the national dialogue that is processing now, and on the other hand, the participation of civil society in this initiative of Hayat Karima or decent life. According to this participation or according to these steps, it must be scheduled as a similar agenda in other countries to achieve the same progress for same initiative. Of course, it's not a role only of finding funds or to have your civil society to participate in these initiatives, but of course it must be controlled as a certain strategy or a certain plan with certain steps. How can you choose the members of this civil society to participate in these initiatives? How can you make their rules, to what extent they can participate in these initiatives, and what is the results or the incomes that you are waiting from the participation of civil society? Of course, this was all scheduled and studied while putting the plan or the strategy of initiative of Hayat Karima, and of course that must be considered and respected by other African countries if they need to repeat or to have the same experience of same initiatives.
How is that particular initiative going to be helping in boosting and empowering the Egyptian personality and the Egyptian well-being? I mean, the Egyptian character that President Abdel Fattah Sisi have mentioned before, yes, about building the Egyptian character, about constructing a new vision for Egyptians, new mentalities, a new self-esteem that is capable and strong of achieving its goals.
When we are talking about these principles or concepts, of course, we suffered a lot for long times, maybe for 20 or 30 years from the absence of these principles for Egyptian people and of course for Egyptian youth for a long time. And these are one of the goals or targets of the new republic, to regain these principles and concepts for the Egyptian society. Having an initiative like Hayat Karima or Decent Life and the achievement and the progress achieved in this initiative, of course this will give Egyptians a confidence for themselves. After many projects that they participate and they succeeded to achieve, like New Suez Canal, like presidential or parliamentary elections, like have a new constitution, many projects that people in Egypt participate in, and they succeeded to overcome any problems or any obstacles that can be presented in these projects. And of course the initiative of Hayat Karima will improve the confidence of Egyptian people as well. On the other hand, initiative of Hayat Karima will give Egyptians loyalty to their country and to their society. For a long time, when we are neglecting these services or these rights protected and presented by Hayat Karima, of course it was so difficult and it was hard life for Egyptians. So many people decided and thought about traveling abroad or to immigrate for another countries. Maybe they find good opportunities, but of course to have a role in this initiative in your country, to participate even as a charity or as a project of a charity or a project of civil society or to give a hand for this initiative, of course this will make a loyalty for your country, and you will try to participate in same initiatives and try to give a hand to your country and try to be attached to any initiatives afterwards. So it can change the concepts or the visions of Egyptian people towards the society and towards the country.
Right. Also applying or expanding or extending this initiative to reach other African countries is part of the soft power and soft diplomacy that is taken by the head of state, President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi. But also it should, I mean, global resources should be provided, regional resources should be provided, expertise should be provided. It needs organization, and it also needs the elaboration of ministries in Africa, like it's happening here in Egypt.
Yes.
Do you think this could be able to happen or possible to happen in light of the conflict of interest, in light of the political crises that are ongoing, and the economic crisis?
Yes.
These are all challenges. I mean, we are capable of overcoming our own challenges here in Egypt.
Yes.
But it could be impossible to make others, I mean, probably that won't be provided, or that won't be possible in other African countries.
Of course, according to what we will apply in small societies, we can apply in great societies. The main concept or the main base of this initiative and the progress they are achieving here in Egypt is, as you said, the cooperation and collaboration between efforts of civil society, maybe private sector, and the governmental sector to participate in this initiative. And of course, when we are looking for a greater society like African countries, or maybe like the Middle East countries, maybe for another countries, European countries maybe, or any country, we can make cooperation with them to repeat this initiative on their lands. Of course, it will be considered that one of the main basics to achieve a progress in this initiative, to make this kind of cooperation between your sectors. And even if you have a shortage in these sectors, you must improve the existence or the construction of this sector firstly in your country, and to make a rule for them, and after that you can reach their participation in these initiatives. Of course, the initiative of Haya Karima, or decent life, presenting a new trend in facing these challenges that you mentioned, according to maybe military conflicts or economic crisis or something like this. Trying to have such initiatives, encouraging other countries to give urgent solutions for these problems. Initiatives can be supported by the will of the leadership of any country, and of course it can be supported by the efforts of people or civil society, can get the participation of private sector or businessmen or something like this. Of course, when you can occupy all these efforts by to be directed to serve these services can be presented by such initiatives, of course you will get a good results on the other side, that you cannot have places in the mind of people for any wrongful ideas, for any terroristic ideas, for any participation in unlawful practice, or maybe fights, or to intend to make harmful actions or to ruin this country. So initiatives can rebuild or make a rethinking or a new way of thinking in the minds of people. And according to this, it can present a new trend for relations of cooperation, even inside the country or even with other country international way.
The role of youth in that particular initiative, is it a major one, or because there is a great space for other age branch, like the people with the experience, like doctors, like engineers, like entrepreneurs, like CEOs of countries who are above the age? I mean, people with experience. It is not conditioned that they should be young. They should have experience, they should be qualified. So it's not necessary they should be young. Not like any other project that really conditions that youth should be involved. But let us say, who is the major player in that particular Egyptian initiative?
I think the major
It's
player,
very distinguished. I
yes,
mean, it's very
yes,
special.
of course.
It does not depend on youth. It
Yes.
depends on women, for example.
The main player in this initiative, I think, is the initiative itself. Of course, participation of all the categories that you mentioned, aged people, maybe youth, maybe women, maybe political leaders, maybe civil servants, maybe employees in the governmental sector, maybe. So all these categories can be collected together in this initiative in a certain harmony. So when you are talking about people with experience, of course they are needed for this initiative, and of course they can give a lot of ideas and a lot of cooperation or a lot of help for this initiative. But on the other hand, you need youth. You need to move, you need to reach far places, you need to talk with people, you need to collect ideas or to collect information or to collect data. And of course this can be presented and can be well done by youth. Of course the participation itself for youth in this initiative will be an experience that will encourage them to participate in another initiatives or to qualify them to have certain positions in even the governmental sector. So according to the participation of women, many initiatives, projects or many activities in this initiative reaching women by a way or another, raising the personal or individual incomes, making services for the infrastructures, education, health care maybe, and of course these services needed in many villages and especially for women in these villages. So according to the plenty of services or plenty of rights and the freedoms protected and cared by these initiatives, you can enlarge the space of participation for all categories. So as you said, many categories in the Egyptian society can participate, and of course the design of the rules in these initiatives welcoming for anyone to participate. They have ambassadors of owners for this initiative. They have reporters, they have photographers, they have participants, and all these positions can be filled by many categories from the Egyptian society.
Right. On that note, Dr. Moataz, you are a professor of international law. I would like to thank you so much for this insight, thorough insight over decent life, and wish you the best of luck. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you, you're welcome.
A real pleasure. Will that bring us to the end of this edition of Windows and Current Affairs? Many thanks to all of you. Until we see you again next week, that's a goodbye.